Hi everyone, it's Father Pete with you. And I've been promising you that I'm going to put together some type of basic instruction on just how different ways that we might be able to spend time with God alone and peacefully. Being still and know that I am God, right? Psalm 46:10, as it says. And I think it's one of the greatest things that we can do, especially with everything going on in our world today, with everything uh, pulling for our attention constantly. There are a lot of people that don't even spend a moment in a day disconnected without music going or video going or TV, internet, texting, social media, all of those things. And we can't stay that way and be in the best union that we can be with God. All right? We have to disconnect from time to time. And we have to disconnect not only from technology, but we have to disconnect from our own thoughts that tend to race through our heads all the time. And I know it might sound easy to do that. Like, yeah, Father Pete, I know how I can do that. I can just detach. And you might find that it's not as easy as you think, okay? I've been involved with meditation practices since I was a boy. I was very interested in meditation. Matter of fact, one of my earliest questions to my mom, who was very much into spirituality, when I remember just being a little boy and asking my mom, "What is meditation?" And I can remember her telling me, about like different yogis and stuff like that that would, focus on different areas of their body and quiet the thoughts in their head. And that's kind of the interpretation that a lot of people have for meditation, is that it quiets the thoughts in our head. And it really doesn't. It really doesn't. What it does do is it teaches us to detach from the thoughts that are constantly running through our head. And then, yes, once we detach for a while, the frequency and the intrusivity of those thoughts diminishes a little. But the thoughts are always there, just like the world is always there, just like, things are always there, right? You can't ever escape into well, I've never tried one of those, what do they call it, the sensory deprivation tanks. I've never tried one of those. I have worked in different test environments in my years as active years as an engineer. I should say years as an active engineer, in doing different kinds of testing, and have been in what they call anechoic chambers that are filled with sound absorbing material, and there's absolutely no echo in those rooms at all. Like when you walk into those chambers, basically it's like well, you can't really see the foam that I have on the wall, but the foam that we have that we use for acoustic foam. It's like that, except that much deeper. And in these rooms, in these chambers, they call them chambers because they got big vault doors on them, really, that close. And when you're in there, it's really the weirdest kind of feeling, because there's no sound reflection whatsoever. So like when you're talking to someone, if someone's in the room with you and you're talking to them, you actually have to point your head directly at them for them to hear you. Otherwise, they just hear this like muffled sound. It's a weird thing. It's a really weird thing. And that's the closest I think I've been in to being in what it would be like to be in a perfectly silent environment, okay? But having said that, even if we escape from the sound, even if we escape from our senses giving us information, we still have the sixth sense, our minds, giving us thoughts. And that's like a continuous train that plays along, and it just runs along. And my meditation teacher used to call it the monkey mind. He used to call it the monkey mind, grabbing from one tree branch to another and swinging from one side to and just going, and all kinds of things connected to other things. And before you know it, we're right into this endless progression of thought after thought after thought. So how do we get away from that? How do we get away from that? How do we escape those things? Okay. Well, I think first of all, let me be clear on this. This is not an exhaustive course on meditation. I think true meditators will take you that it really it's a practice. That's why they call it practicing meditation. It's something, it's like practicing martial arts. It's something that you have to do. And the more you do, the more you get comfortable with it, the more that, I don't even want to say comfortable when it comes to talking about meditation, the more you get proficient at it. Okay, but it's something that you always do. All right, it's something. There are many, many different ways. Many, many, many different ways. Too many for me to go into all the different ways. Okay, but I'm going to go over a couple with you. And the first one, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit them all into one video here, both into one video, I should say, or if I'll make separate ones. But I want to talk to you about the basic meditation first. And this is a lot what I think a lot of people think of with meditation. All right, is when we hear of meditation, like I said, we think of stilling the thoughts in our minds, and that's not true. Okay, what it is that we do is not attach ourselves to those thoughts. And I say that, again, it sounds easy, but it's not that easy to do. The basic way to do it that I've been taught is an ancient form of meditation, and it deals with focusing. First, the best thing to do at first is to focus on the biggest area that you can, on the area around your nose. Like if you think about a triangular area, like about from your upper lip to your nose, like about like that, okay? If you think about the area in there, that area, and focus your attention on that. Focus your attention on that. To sit, first of all, posture, okay? Posture, all right? Some people get too caught up in posture. Some people get too caught up in all of the practice of meditation that they never get a chance to actually practice meditation. They're so caught up in all of the, am I sitting right? Are my hands right? Am I back straight? Am I doing all of, they want to look like Buddha, like perfectly still, perfectly straight, 90-degree angle of the back to the hips, to the legs, like sitting perfectly in a perfect posture. Hands perfectly level in doing most of us know this here mudra, they call it, of the hands, right? Or this is another one, or this is another one, like that. There's many different mudras, and people get so caught up in those things. In reality, you can just sit in a chair. You can just be sitting in a chair with your arms on your legs, or on your arms on the arms of the chair, and just sit. Or cross your arms if you want. Put your hands together in your lap if you want. Whatever you would like to do, okay? It's almost secondary, the whole posture part of it. But the main thing is to be comfortable in a position that you can sit in for a little while and not have the tendency to be moving around a lot, okay? So once you find that posture, it's best, first of all, to start with just short periods of time. Even 5 minutes is good. 10 minutes is good. And if you have a hard time with it, start with like maybe 5 or 10 minutes and then go to 15 minutes, then go to 20 minutes, and take time going to the next level, all right? But the actual practice is this, like I said, is to focus on this triangle area here from about your upper lip out to about here on your nose, and then up to your nose, okay? If we think about this area here, okay? And think about the sensations that you feel there. Think about the sensations that you feel there, all right? And not identify. That's one of the biggest tricks, is not to identify, like, I feel an itch, or I feel the coolness of my breath, and naming it, right? Don't get into that habit. That's just another level of undoing that you end up having to do, all right? But to just, with whatever it is that we recognize things with, just pay attention to that area, not naming it, but just feeling the breath as it goes over the rims of your nostril, or maybe across the upper part of your lip. And pay attention to any of the sensations that you feel in this area, okay? Whether it's an itching or a burning but don't label them. Just pay attention to them, okay? And you will find that you can do that at first. If you've never done anything like this, you might make it maybe 5 seconds, if that, without your mind going to something else, without your mind jumping to some other thing, okay? And the way you deal with that is don't push it away. Don't get upset. Don't worry about it. Just go back to focusing on this area here, okay? And being still and just focusing on this area here, okay? And then even if you find yourself thinking about, oh, a pain in my leg, I have a pain in my leg, or, a pain in my foot or something like that, just acknowledge it and come back to this area, okay? So any distractions that you have, the whole goal really is whatever it is, let it happen. Don't push it away. Just let it happen. And bring your attention back to this area right here. Bring your attention right back to this area right here. Okay? And you'll find that after a little while, you'll be able to do it maybe for 15 seconds, maybe for 30 seconds. But I'm telling you right now, in the beginning, it's hard to do. It's very hard to do because that's how much we are interconnected with this constant procession of thoughts that arise in our heads, okay? If we don't try and hold on to those thoughts, if we don't try and identify and label those thoughts, it's the labeling actually that kind of gets us pulled into it. All right, because immediately what happens is we tend to automatically label things as good or bad. Label things as that feels good, I want more, that feels bad, I don't want that, okay? Try not to get into that whole labeling thing, but just experience the sensations in this area. Experience the sensations in this area. The more you do that, and the more you don't attach yourself to the thoughts that constantly arise, you'll start seeing that you can keep your focus here, and then you start noticing the thoughts are still happening, right? The thoughts are still arising, the thoughts are still going, but you're not, how do I want to say it? You're not encouraging them, you're not attaching yourself to them, you're not going into those thoughts. You're just realizing that they're there, they're rising and passing away. Okay? And you'll notice that's the same way with your thoughts as it is things that you hear, right? If you hear maybe people walking by outside, you hear them, it gets louder, and then it starts getting quieter, and they're gone. You hear a car pass by, it's quiet, then it gets louder, and then it passes by, and it gets quieter again. Okay? Same thing with those kind of distractions. Don't push them away, don't get aggravated with them, just come back to this, focusing on this area right here. Okay? And when you do that, the more you do that, the easier it becomes to stay with your attention here. All right? And that's really the most important thing. That's really the most important thing. Now, if you try and do it while you're listening to me tell you what to do, it can be a little hard because you're going to be focusing on what I'm saying and not focusing on the area here. Okay, but the goal is once you start getting comfortable with focusing on this triangle area, then make the area a little bit smaller. So eventually, and this could take weeks of practice of doing this, right, to get to this point. First, strive for making your time a little bit longer, right? If you're starting with 10 minutes, strive for making it 15 minutes, then 20 minutes, then 30 minutes. The ultimate goal really is to try and get to a point where, if you can, to spend an hour. And the best way to do it, as most meditation teachers will tell you, is an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, okay? And that might seem like, well, I don't have time for that. Well, I got a clue for you, and I got something from my own experience, is that when we get to those times in our lives where we think, I don't have time for that, I don't have time to sit for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, that's usually the time where you need to be doing it the most, okay? And what happens is you learn how to disassociate yourself with distractions. And you start being able to observe them. And there starts to get to be this time in between a stimulus of a sense, right? Whether it's a sound, whether it's a thought, whether it's a smell, whether it's a sight, no matter what it is. You'll see at first what happens is something arises and you tend to label it and push it away or grab onto it, right? When it comes to a thought, okay? Or you feel a pain in your leg when you're sitting on your leg, you shift the way that you're sitting, right? You shift the way you're sitting, trying to eliminate the pain. Instead of doing that, keep the attention here and acknowledge that discomfort that you're feeling. Don't label it a discomfort though, but don't label, just experience. Okay? So if some discomfort arises like in your leg while you're sitting, look at it just like you were looking on this area here, acknowledge it for what it is, don't label it, and then come right back to this area here. Like I was saying, the goal is to eventually, when you get your time a little bit longer in meditation, is to make the area a little bit smaller so that you eventually get down to just this area right here at the bottom of your nose. Okay, and feel the breath as it comes in. The coolness when you breathe in, maybe the warm dampness when you breathe out. In and out through your nose. Don't try and control your breath rate. Okay, don't try and exaggerate the way that you breathe in or you breathe out. Try and let your breath be as normal as possible. Okay, all right. So, think of it this way. It's a training for focusing your attention. And when you get to a point, you realize that your attention can be almost like a laser beam focused. And all that you're really concerned with in that moment is the area that you're focusing on. Okay? And you will start noticing that, you're moving less and less to try and adjust your bodily position if you feel discomfort. You'll start noticing that that thoughts are arising, and you're not getting caught up in them. They arise, and they keep going. They arise, and they keep going. Okay? You know that you're not doing it right if all of a sudden this thought comes up. Let me give you a perfect example. This is like just a normal thing that happens, right? You sit, and you're getting calm, and you're just relaxed. You're focusing on this area. Cool breath coming in. And you're feeling that, and all of a sudden you start thinking about that beautiful beach that you were on in Hawaii or in wherever you were, Florida, or just think, and all of a sudden your mind starts going and you're in that scene and you're there on the beach again. And then you realize, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be meditating. And the tendency is to get mad and push that away, but don't do that. Don't push it away. Just simply come back to focusing on this area. All right? And then you will see, you'll be focusing on that area for just a little while, and all of a sudden, dinner. It would be nice to have a nice steak tonight, or a nice burger, or some fish, or some, whatever it is. Before you know it, you're planning your dinner menu. Instead of getting mad and pushing that away, just sometimes it even helps to give a little bit of a smile and just come back to the area under your nose, around your nose here. And keep coming back to that. And you'll be surprised that the more that you do that, the easier it is to do, and the less you get pulled away into those thoughts as they arise, the less that you get pulled away into the noises that you hear outside. And why this is important is in that time you will start realizing that there is a peace, there is a serenity, and that serenity, that peace is God. That peace is God. And in that time, in those brief times in between our thoughts racing here and there, that's the other thing, is you'll notice that the thoughts don't race after a while. They just kind of arise and pass away, arise and pass away. At first, it's like a constant boom, 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 like my meditation teacher would say, monkey mind, going from one tree branch to another constantly, one thing connecting to another. Okay. But you'll see that dissipates quickly. All right. So if we spend some time just in thinking about this area here, you'll start noticing that this feeling comes over you without you trying to do it at all, but you have a feeling of peace. You have a feeling of, I guess the best way to really explain it is compassion. It's love. It's compassion. It's connecting with nature. It's connecting with God. God is in all of nature, and all of nature is in God. And you'll start realizing that, how important those moments are that we can spend with God, those quiet moments. And the good thing about it is the more that you practice this kind of practice here, this procedure, is that you can take it with you out into the world. And you'll notice that when something starts to bother you, immediately your breath starts to increase. Your breath rate starts to get deeper, gets faster, right? And you start feeling, if it's something that's making you angry, you start feeling a warmth coming over you. When you train yourself to focus on this area here, you'll see that it gives you the moment to realize, oh, that's happening. I'm starting to lose my balance. I'm starting to lose my equanimity. And then you can even in that moment come back to thinking about your nose and the area around your nose. And you'll see that whatever it was that was distracting you or pulling you or your attention negatively is just another one of those things that arises and passes away. Brothers and sisters, it's so important for us to spend some time with God. It's so important. It's so important. There have been great saints that have taught this procedure, right? Joseph Capistrano, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint John of the Cross. Many of them that practice this form of meditation. A lot of times it's called, in a prayer, via negativa, the negative way, right? The letting go of, instead of focusing on like a word or a hymn or a psalm or a scripture or something like that, to just be with the sensation. Okay, and then you'll see that in that connection that you get is probably the strongest and maybe most powerful connection that you've ever felt with God. And when you start coupling that with like going to sacred places and being there where God is, right? Where God, whether it's a cathedral, whether it's a shrine, whether it's a place in nature, wherever it is, that if you take that moment and practice and and you can do it after a while, you can do it while you're standing just for a second. You don't have to sit in a posture, and you can just do it. And you'll see, it enhances where you are. It enhances your moments with God. And that's what it's all about. I've said over and over again, we get taught a lot of times that we need to make our relationship with God stronger. The biggest thing that gets in the way with that is our own thinking about what that means. We have the greatest relationship we could ever have with God. It's a intimate connection with God. We are all connected through God. We are all part of God. God is in each and every one of us. We are all in God, and we are all connected with one another as well. It's not something we have to strive for. It's just something that is. And the more we practice these moments of stillness, the more we will realize that God is in those stillness times, the times of stillness, the still small voice. Be still and know that I'm God. And you'll start to understand what that psalm really means. It's in those still moments that we can get our closest moments with God. And then we realize the connection and how strong that connection is, and that it's always been there and always will. Peace be with all of you. Be still and know God as God. And most of all, be happy and pass that happiness along with every breath you breathe in and every breath you breathe out. I'm Father Pete. Have a blessed day, and may God be with you until we meet again.